Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. The president's marching orders are clear. Kickbacks in government projects must end after decades of existence. The House says the buck stops with contractors and the DPWH. But one good governance advocate says lawmakers are not without sin.
And the 20th Congress alliances have come to light, ready to pose challenges to leadership. At the Senate, there is a new minority, and at the lower chamber, former allies of the Speaker have formed an independent bloc.
Back to the upper chamber, it sets yet another date to tackle the Supreme Court's ruling on Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment case. But if it were up to Senate President Cheese Escudero, there's no need for the ouster trial anymore.
Mahiya naman kayo. Binulsan nyo lang ang pera.
In fairness to him, maganda yung intention. Pero hindi ba ako kayo nagtaka bakit pumalakpak sila? Sila yung pinakamalaking porsyento dyan. Sindikato eh. Organized crime nga eh.
The House of Representatives is launching its very own inquiry on questionable infrastructure projects. That's after congressmen were also tagged in constructions riddled by allegations of corruption. One of those making that accusation is Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Maggalong, who claims only 30% of budgets go to actual projects because of collusion among agencies and lawmakers. Mobile journalist Julie Baisa has tonight's big story.
Mahiya naman kayo sa inyong kapwa Pilipino. Mahiya naman kayo sa mga kabahayan nating naanod o nalubog sa mga pagbaha. Mahiya naman kayo lalo sa mga anak natin na magmamana sa mga utang na ginawa ninyo nang binulsan nyo lang ang pera.
President Bongbong Marcos got a standing ovation for this portion of his fourth State of the Nation address on July 28. He vowed to investigate and file cases against those who milked flood control projects and got a share of hush money for these initiatives. His marching order to the DPWH: submit a list of all flood control projects over the past 3 years. DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan says they are ready to oblige.
Ang isasubmit namin is a number of projects that we have completed since July of 2022 until May, I think, of this year, which I think about 9,800 projects all over the country, all over the country. And there are, I think, about 5,700 that are ongoing at this time. With all the records that we will be submitting, I think we also intend to conduct yung audit namin sa lahat ng mga projects kasi that's already 3 years. Tingnan namin kung ano ang itsura na yung mga projects na nagawa.
A quick perusal of the DPWH's budgets between now and 2022 also showed generous allocations that totaled almost 700 billion pesos. Some of the items in the budget included 1 billion pesos allotted to Las Piñas, including here at Dali Creek in Barangay Pulang Lupa, where there's supposed to be a 100 million peso flood control installation, but there was no such structure in the area. More than 800 million pesos was provided for Parañaque, from which 70 million pesos was allotted to this flood control structure at Barangay San Dionisio that's still under construction. Another flood control structure is said to have received 21 million pesos in 2024, but barangay officials didn't know about it. All that's in there is an old booster pump, which MMDA installed. Baguio City Mayor and good governance advocate Benjamin Maggalong is stunned. He can't wrap his head around the alleged audacity of some of those who applauded during Marcos's speech.
In fairness to him, maganda yung intention. Pero hindi ba ako kayo nagtaka bakit pumalakpak sila? Kasi alam nilang mahirapan silang matukoy eh. Kasi wala silang pinirmahan. It's structural. It's an highly organized crime.
Maggalong insisted that it's lawmakers themselves who earn kickbacks from government projects ranging from 35 to 40%. He said the corruption begins with the people inside DPWH, chosen by congressmen themselves.
It starts with the selection of the district engineer or yung regional engineer ng DPWH, and who are actually selecting them. It's not the secretary of DPWH. Based dun sa nireport sa akin ng isang contractor at mga suppliers at sa mga resources na rin natin, these are organic personnel. Usually, ang kinukuha ng mga politiko, mga lawmakers, is around 35 to 40. Yan. Standard yan. Lalo-lalo na kung kanila yung pork barrel fund.
But according to House spokesperson Attorney Princess Abante, all congressmen do is advocate or push for programs for their constituents.
Alam ko po pagdating sa ahensya, ang ahensya po ang may control sa mga pagpili ng kanilang mga tao sa iba't ibang regions. Ang ahensya, bawat ahensya ng gobyerno ang responsible sa mga programa at plano. On infrastructure, we propose it and recommend it to the DPWH. If it is the part of their priority, then hopefully maisama. Again,
House Speaker Martin Romualdez, for his part, said he will fully cooperate in possible investigations which will involve members of the House.
And we take to heart his call, his frustration even, about the lingering shadow of corruption in our institutions. This is why the House of Representatives will launch a comprehensive congressional review of all infrastructure projects and fund implementation. We will investigate ghost projects, bloated contracts, chronic underspending, and abuse of discretion in fund realignment and procurement. Ang kaban ng bayan ay hindi dapat ninanakaw, hindi dapat sinasayang. Ito ay para sa mamamayan. Bawat sentimo, bawat proyekto, bawat serbisyo. We are not here to cover up. We are here to clean up.
Mobile Journal Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
Now let's discuss this issue further with Bicol Saro Party List Representative Terry Reidon. He also founded Infra Watch PH, a public policy think tank that focuses on major public infrastructure and development projects in the country. Good evening, Congressman Reidon.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, base sa sinabi ni Mayor Maggalong, it's as if lawmakers will be investigating their own.
Tingin ko hindi naman. Pero let me reiterate, the President and the House Speaker has already stated that investigations will be undertaken at the level of the DPWH and at the level of the House. No? So basically in pursuit of the presidential pronouncement yesterday. No? Pero I think very important before proceeding, maybe Mayor Maggalong should show the evidence where the 30% actually is. No? Kasi parang it's very difficult, a bit unfair, no, to tag all congressmen to be receiving 30% and 40% in kickbacks in each and every infrastructure project. So he's been speaking so much already in the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of months. But we have yet to see a single document, actually, that shows that, in fact, 30 or 40% had actually been received by a congressman or whichever legislator in the country.
He can be called in as a witness to testify in the investigation of the House?
I think he should. Mm-hmm. He should. And I think it's already a commitment that I think in the next couple of weeks, this investigation relating to infrastructure projects will be convened, probably by the House Committee on Public Accounts. So Mayor Maggalong is free to attend. We'll invite him. He can make his case that, in fact, 30 to 40% had, in fact, been received by lawmakers. And he has to be able to name names, which lawmakers, which district, which party list actually received these funds from government contractors.
But Congressman, it's a known SOP that some lawmakers, I'm not saying all, choose their own contractors.
Well, I don't know. I don't know it for a fact because that's not what I've done in previous instances. So I think the allegation should be proved by the one who alleges it. So what I know, for example, in DPWH is they do the bids, there is a competitive bid there. If you win it, then you win it. If you lose it, then you lose it. So I think a full-scale investigation is actually warranted, whether it's undertaken by DPWH and whether it's undertaken by the House, or if the Senate would want it, then they should also do it.
Congressman Terry, this is Sean. There are a lot of loopholes when it comes to procurement. We do know, of course, there are some sitting lawmakers that their families are also into the contractor business, kumbaga, not just for construction of infrastructure, but even, supplying laptops, office supplies, school supplies, etc. How do you propose, now we close that loophole so this doesn't happen anymore?
Well, to be very clear, the procurement rules and procurement law is clear, no? They're not supposed to be in the contracting business if they're serving as legislators, no? So, isabihin, if their names are in the board of directors, if they're in the leadership management team of a government contractor, they should be taken out, they should be disqualified. And if they're participating in all of these contracts, they should in fact be blacklisted in the soonest time. So I think we don't need new laws for this. What we need would be actual whistleblowers that will basically tell government today, who are these people that are engaging with government? Are they actually giving money to legislators? We'd like to see that in the investigation in the House.
That's Senate President Chis Escudero in a press con earlier today. He said he's planning to propose a bill that will disallow relatives up to fourth level of consanguinity from, bidding against government projects or procurement situations. Do you support that, or would you be willing to support that in the lower house?
Well, we'll support it, but I think we have to be very clear. I think in the procurement laws, it's already there that government relatives, those that are basically connected to legislators, implementing agencies, cannot participate in government contracts. So I don't think if we need a new law for it, we just need more people to actually enforce it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sir, Mayor Maggalong actually also pointed out that the selection of contractors doesn't happen in the level of the DPWH secretary, but rather with the district and regional engineers. And he says, if we really want to get to the bottom of this, it's the contractors who should speak up. Can we actually expect them to talk and expose the corruption happening?
Well, those that, for example, were disqualified from particular government bids can actually be the whistleblowers for this. No? If they have the evidence that these contracts had in fact been rigged by the district engineer, by the regional director, together with colluding government contractors, I think it's the losing contractors that can actually be the whistleblower in these particular contracts.
Mm-hmm. In your work, in your advocacy, what have you discovered about the relationship between contractors and government officials and legislators?
Well, I think we have to be very clear. We had history in 2013 where we had seen the PDAF scam. So I think that's something that we have to learn from. And if the lessons of the PDAF scam re-emerge again in these government contracts, I think we have to be ready to basically put light into those that are actually involved and make them accountable.
We have also seen the rise of party list groups, those now sitting in Congress, who are actually contractors or funded by contractors.
Well, I don't know at this point, no. Because what I understand is that the party lists are supposed to be advocating for a region, a particular sector, no? But I think this is a concern by several advocate groups, no, that are looking for reforms in the party list law. So very important that we should be able to determine which contractors are these and whether or not they're actually involved in the party list election.
Balikan ko lang very quickly yung 2013 PDAF scam. You raised that example, so did that interview with Benji Maggalong earlier on our sister show. Ang nagyari doon ay nakulong nga si Janet Napoles. Of course, she's really more of a middleman. Nakita natin what happened to the lawmakers who were involved. Pretty much they were let go. Some of them didn't even return the money that was ordered for them to be returned.
And were re-elected.
Yeah, so how hopeful are we that we actually really did learn from that experience?
Well, I think we have to be able to file better cases. So we have to file better evidence, no? And make sure that each and every person that are involved in rigged projects, whether he's a legislator, whether he's a government contractor, whether he's part of the implementing agency, should be able to made to account. No? So ibig sabihin, you have to learn from it. No? So it is true, no, that legislators that were involved in that PDAP scam are basically in the Senate again, diba? But I think if the president actually would want an all-seeking investigation into this matter, there should not be sacred cows.
Is the House of Congress or the Senate are they the appropriate bodies to investigate? Because lawmakers are involved.
Well, House can do it, DPWH can do it, no? Kasi we have the committees to do the investigation for all of these projects. So I think, for example, I'm speaking for myself. It is my commitment that when the inquiry is actually undertaken, we have to be able to ask the hard questions to whoever it is. If it's a legislator, then so be it. If it's like a government contractor, then so be it. If it's like a regional director or a district engineer, then so be it.
Well, Congressman, among the favorite projects daw po, no, for overpricing include flood control programs, asphalt laying, pati solar light projects. What about the Dolomite Beach in Manila? I believe you did file that resolution to investigate itong Dolomite Beach. What are you hoping to find?
Well, firstly, we'd like to be able to know whether it's necessary in the first place to have spent 389 million into just placing sand along Manila Bay and not actually contributing to improving the water quality, which is basically an obligation under the continuing mandamus of the Supreme Court. No? So I think that's the first question. But second of all, it's a question on price. So we'd like to be able to know whether or not the price is basically overpriced or whether it is more or less reasonable in comparison to similar projects here and abroad.
Are you also going to be investigating what happened to the Manila Bay rehabilitation project, which I believe that beach was a part of, as well as the many, many reclamation projects going on there?
Well, I think that the first part of the inquiry relating to Manila Bay would include the Dolomite Beach. The second would be relating to the flood control. So irrespective of whatever the President said or whatever the House said, I think it's a direction to actually look into flood control projects, not just in Metro Manila, but around the country. And the third aspect of inquiring into the Manila Bay floods would be obviously the status of ongoing and future reclamation in Manila Bay, on whether or not government should continue to allow future reclamation, or whether or not we should just let the ongoing reclamation be the last of the reclamation projects.
All right. Well, we wish you luck and hoping for a credible investigation into these issues. Thank you for joining us in the Big Story, Congressman Terry Reidon.
Now, in other news, why was online gambling not mentioned in yesterday's State of the Nation address? Well, the palace said it's because President Marcos is still studying the matter. Unlike last year, when the president made a splash by announcing a total pogo ban, he was notably silent this time on e-gambling. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro told News 5 the chief executive is still weighing the pros and cons of a total ban, a delicate balancing act, as underscored by Finance Secretary Ralph Recto.
Dahil nga sinabi natin, kung magsasabi naman siya agad na totally ban ito, pero hindi pala nagiging maganda ang epekto nito sa bayan, mas mukhang magkakaroon ng pagkakamali ang Pangulo. Pero sa ngayon ay hindi pa natin alam kung ano talaga ang balak ng Pangulo dito sa online gambling dahil totoo yan. Sabi nga natin, yung isabong wala na, sinuspend yan or hindi na ito umiiral, pero bakit nandiyan pa rin yung mga illegal isabong?
It's a balancing act that we have to do. Having said that, if people do gamble, you'd rather regulate it than they go to the illegal. Today, my understanding is 60% is illegal and 40% is legal. If you ban it, 100% will become illegal.
Castro and Recto, along with other cabinet officials, were in San Juan earlier in the day for post-SONA discussions. They elaborated on President Marcos's 71-minute speech yesterday at the Batasan. Recto declared that the country's inflation rate is now under control, which currently sits at 1.4%, which is well below Bangko Central's target range of 2 to 4%. Meanwhile, Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tiu Laurel Jr. vowed to bring the 20 peso per kilo rice to as many as 15 million households for 60 million Filipinos. The government will also buy rice from farmers at a higher price. 20% of grains will be used for Mr. Marcos's signature campaign promise, while 80% will be sold at a retail price to ensure the program's sustainability. Laurel also bats for amendments to the rice tarification law so the NFA can sell grains at a cheaper price.
And just one day after President Bongbong Marcos's promised justice in the case of the missing Sabueros, the National Police Commissioner NAPOLCOM filed administrative cases against the 12 policemen tagged in the case. NAPOLCOM said it found probable cause based on the testimonies and documents from self-proclaimed whistleblower Julie Dondon Patidongan alias Totoy and videos and statements from the relatives of the victims. These police officers will be given the chance to defend themselves in the NAPOLCOM on-bank hearing. At the moment, they remain in restrictive custody at Camp Crame as they await formal decision whether or not they will be suspended. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice said they are bringing out a witness in the case soon who will back up Patidongan's testimonies.
Tsaka hindi lang to testimonial evidence, may real evidence na involved dito. Meron ditong totoong ebidensya na bukod sa kwento, meron itong sariling ebidensya pa na kalakip.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, the Senate asks for more time yet again to decide whether or not to go ahead with Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial, despite last week's Supreme Court ruling to stop it. We have the details of that when the big story returns. Stay tuned.
You're watching the big story here on One News. The saga, that is the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte, has been extended for another week. Today, after a caucus, the Senate decided to tackle the Supreme Court's ruling on the VP's ouster case on August 6. Senate President Francis Escudero announced this in today's plenary session. Escudero said this was decided by senators to give them more time to review the High Tribunal's ruling. Last Friday, the SC declared the impeachment of VP Duterte in violation of the one-year bar rule. But according to Senator Mig Subiri, there were senators who wanted to dismiss the impeachment case in Tuesday's plenary session.
For the record, it was agreed in caucus that the matter will be decided upon by the Senate on August 6, 2025, when we open session on that date, in order to afford ample and sufficient time to the members to study the 97-page Supreme Court decision, excluding the concurring and separate opinions filed by 5 or 6 additional magistrates of the Supreme Court.
Meron nakakasama na gusto na yung araw tatayo at i-dismiss na. They gave in to the request of our colleagues na let's give us 1 week, at least 1 more week para pag-aralan na mabuti, and of course our discussions should be educated discussions on the particular issue.
Meantime, the Senate President believes there is no need to convene as an impeachment court again to vote on the Supreme Court ruling. He noted that with the SC's decision, the upper chamber no longer has jurisdiction over the case.
Sa tingin ko, mas safe na Senado ang magpapasya kaugnay nito imbis na impeachment court, dahil baka matingnan pa na paglabag ang pag-convene ng impeachment court matapos ang naging desisyon ng Korte Suprema. Kung inaksyon na namin at anong itsura namin ngayon na bawal pala lahat ng ginawa namin. Paano kung nag-convict ang Senado? Bawal naman pala lahat dahil nilabag naman pala yung Bill of Rights at right to due process ng nasasakdal. So babalik ta rin ko, Sally. Baka naman kaya minamadali ito noong mga panahon yun ng iba? Ay dahil alam nilang may problema o maaaring magka-problema.
Well, so much has been said about the Supreme Court's ruling on the impeachment case of Vice President Sara Duterte. Let's discuss this tonight from the point of view of a former Associate Justice of the High Tribunal. And joining us is Justice Adolfo Ascuna. Welcome to the Big Story, Justice. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
First of all, you have said, Justice, that the decision is lawful but unfair. May you elaborate?
Yes, I said that the decision may be legally correct, but it strikes me as rather unfair. The reason I say so is because the decision crafts a new definition of the initiation of a impeachment complaint, different from the one it has promulgated in the Francisco versus House of Representatives in 2003, wherein a complaint for impeachment is deemed initiated only if it is filed and referred to a proper committee. In this case, there was no such reference to a committee, so it has not yet been initiated. However, now under the new concept or ruling under this present decision, initiation can mean even not referred to a committee if it is archived and then later on deemed terminated and dismissed.
So this sets aside the Francisco ruling. This is the precedent that will be followed now?
Yes, it would amend the Francisco ruling in the sense that it would add a different definition of what is initiating an impeachment complaint.
Now, the House of Representatives, Justice, is set to file a motion for reconsideration because they say the High Court did not appreciate the facts that they presented in their answer to the High Court. Is there hope for an MR with a unanimous decision of the justices?
Yes, it is the right of the House of Representatives to file a motion for reconsideration. Even if it is a unanimous decision, there's always a chance that they will change, or some of them anyway, will change their votes. And so it's worth trying. Besides, there is also the view that the Supreme Court did not give the House of Representatives a chance to file an answer or even a comment, thereby violating the principle of due process in rendering a decision which virtually is an ex parte decision.
Ironically, they cite due process as their main argument for deciding in favor of VP Sara.
The main argument is that the fourth complaint is barred by the rule that only one complaint can be filed within 1 year, counting the earlier three complaints as constituting an earlier complaint, even if they do not come within the definition of complaints initiated under the prevailing Francisco doctrine.
And that's exactly what I wanted to ask you, Justice Ascuna, because I've long had an issue with what really happened to the first three complaints. Perhaps the Supreme Court was replying to the non-action of the House or the House Secretary General on the first three complaints, and that's why they deemed it, initiated anyways. Because as a citizen, I feel like it's unfair. If I was the one who filed it and they just sat on it for that long. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think the court considered the action of the House in deliberately waiting for the last day to calendar the three previous complaints so that there is no more time to refer them to a proper committee because the Congress was adjourning that day. And instead, they adopted a fourth complaint as a initiated complaint. And so the House, the Supreme Court probably considered that as a bad faith on the part of the House in avoiding referring the three earlier complaints to the committee, and therefore considered it as if they were referred and initiated.
And having said that, Justice, would you say that this action by the Supreme Court actually serves to kind of close some of the loopholes so that the impeachment process will not be taken advantage of down the line in the future?
Yes, I think the action of the Supreme Court is definitely something different from the Francisco ruling. And so I say it should not be applied to the present case because the House merely relied on the same Supreme Court's ruling in Francisco on how a complaint is initiated.
Is it a possibility, Justice, that you will be asked to be an amicus curiae of the court? Can the House of Representatives or any other petitioner?
That is the prerogative of the Supreme Court to ask anybody to assist it as an amicus curiae. I would be honored in such a case.
Justice, on the other side of the coin, because Sean pointed out the move to protect the process, but the process also wants to protect the procedure from fake complaints, from bad complaints, because once you initiate it to the Justice Committee, once you refer a flawed complaint to the Justice Committee, that's it. The one-year ban starts. And you're stuck with a complaint that has no future, that can just be dismissed by the committee.
Which is why there was Francisco, the ruling, the Francisco ruling to begin with.
So those are two sides of the coin.
Okay, the reason stated in Francisco why a second complaint within a year, in the case of Francisco within a month, may not be filed is because the incumbent official will have nothing else to do except face complaints for impeachment if you do not limit it as the Constitution provides, not more than one every year.
But there is the matter also of protecting an impeachable official by filing a complaint that holds no water.
Yes, if it holds no water, it should not be referred to a committee. Then it will not be considered in counting the one-year ban.
Then couldn't this have been the argument of the House? That's why it was archived, not referred?
That could be an argument. The problem is they waited until it was the last day. And therefore, it may be considered as bad faith on their part because there was no more chance to refer it on the adjournment already. 10th day was the day of adjournment. If they had done it on the first day, then there's 3 more days to refer it to a committee. They could say that we could refer this, but this has no merit, so we will not refer it. Then they're considered in good faith. What the Supreme Court saw probably was a malicious intent not to refer it to committee by calendaring it on the last day when it is impossible already to refer it to committee.
Well, Justice, I wanted to zero in on the due process requirement being cited by the Supreme Court. You are one of the framers of the 1987 Constitution. Is it really required to provide copies of the articles and evidence to the respondent, giving them time to peruse these documents and defend themselves before it is transmitted to the Senate for trial?
I respectfully disagree with that part of the decision of the Supreme Court, which I consider to be as not binding because it is not necessary for to resolve the case. No, it's obiter dictum. In any case, very clear to me the provision of the Constitution that in the case where the House itself adopts a resolution by a 1/3 vote, that resolution constitutes already the articles of impeachment, and trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed. There is no room for asking the respondent to file an answer. Trial shall immediately proceed. The due process and the right to answer will occur in the Senate, where the trial is going to be held.
Now let's go to the Senate, because on August 6, they will discuss this, what their moves will be, Justice. And there are those of the belief, well, Senate President Cheese just said that there is no need for the body to convene as an impeachment court, but rather as a body, as the Senate, to vote on whether they should proceed or not. What should they do? What can they do in this case?
Yes, the Senate now has the option. One is to file a motion for reconsideration. They're also parties to the petitions filed in the Supreme Court. The other is to meet not as an impeachment court, but as a Senate to consider how to proceed in light of the decision of the Supreme Court, whether or not to abide by it or to insist on their prerogative under the Constitution. The Senate should proceed and try the case forthwith.
And what is your position, Justice? What is your belief? What can they do? Can they proceed despite the Supreme Court ruling?
My own concept is for them to abide by the Supreme Court ruling so as not to cause a constitutional crisis. However, it is really up to the senators. They can consider the decision of the Supreme Court as not binding on the present case and apply the doctrine of operative facts, which is that even if it is contrary to the present rule, the old rule should apply because this has already been done, and that there's also a rule that jurisdiction once acquired is never lost. And they said already acquired jurisdiction pursuant to the prevailing doctrine under Francisco before the Supreme Court decided this case. And so it cannot apply to deprive it of jurisdiction that has already attached. That is, due process requires that you do not deprive vested rights in application of the case.
Yes, Justice. Kumbaga, it should be prospective or just apply to future cases. But I wanted to go back to the Supreme Court's decision. Some groups have called it as a rushed decision. Would you agree, Justice? And should the Supreme Court have called for oral arguments first, given the weight of the issue?
I agree with that the Supreme Court should have asked for comment, as they invariably did in previous cases, or answer from the respondents before deciding the case merely on the response to questions that it posed, which is not sufficient to allow the respondents to give its full side to the controversy.
Justice, what do you think would trigger a constitutional crisis? If Senate decides to continue with the trial, some legal luminaries don't necessarily think this automatically means a constitutional crisis. So what would it take to bring us there?
I think it could trigger a crisis because the Supreme Court already said that the Senate did not acquire jurisdiction and therefore cannot try the case. So if the Senate proceeds to try the case, you'll have two bodies, independent bodies, contradicting each other, and that is not good. That is what is called the pathology of a legal system, when there is not just a violation of peace and order, but there is a violation of the rule of recognition. In other words, the rule of the Constitution is not interpreted in the same way by the branches of government. That is a crisis. That is called pathology of a legal system.
I want to read you something, Justice Escuna. In a previous interview, you were asked whether or not this was judicial overreach, and you said no, that the Supreme Court really should have studied this case. And you said, I think the Supreme Court is acting within its constitutional power and, in fact, duty to determine whether, in a particular case, any agency or instrumentality of the government has acted with grave abuse of discretion and therefore may be corrected by the Supreme Court through the exercise of its extended power of certiorari. Can you laymanize this for us?
Yes, I said that in relation to its power to ask those questions. But I did not say it should decide on the basis of the answers. It should proceed by requiring a fuller answer and hearing oral arguments, because that is in the light of the concept that the court under the new constitution is given an inquisitorial role. And inquisitorial means take all means to determine the facts. And one of the best way of determining the facts is to hold oral arguments.
All right. Now, Justice, may the court do this when it tackles the MR of the House of Representatives? Will there be an opportunity?
Yes, the MR of the House would give the court an opportunity to allow a fuller discussion of the facts, because this decision depends so much on the facts, what really happened in the House. And this can be done through oral arguments. And not only that, in an oral argument on the MR, an oral argument on the MR will allow a full court, not just unanimous, but a full court, because Justice Caguioa, who recused himself, is allowed under the rules to take part in the oral arguments. He's not allowed to vote, but he can take part. He can ask questions. And Justice Singh, who is only may participate, hopefully, she will be able to participate. So you can have a full court listening to the oral arguments, participating, rather than just 13.
And this would be good for the public as well, to be able to observe the arguments of all the sides.
Yes, exactly. The people will also know both sides. And this is, I think, a very healthy exercise that the court, if given the opportunity, should take avail of.
Justice, there are also questions on the timing of the decision on a Friday on the eve of the President's State of the Nation address.
I'm not privy to the timing of the decision or the reasons for it. It is possible that the court wanted the decision to be out before the new Congress comes in.
All right. So we thank you so much. Thank you so much for enlightening us, Justice, and we really do hope you become an amicus curiae. One of the petitioners will request you. Thank you so much. That was former Supreme Court Associate Justice Adolfo Azcuna.
Well, also coming out of today's caucus at the Senate is the initial roster of committee chairmanships. And the list is quite mixed, with seasoned and new senators taking the helm of several significant committees. First, we have first-time Senator Rodante Marcoleta, who now chairs the very powerful Blue Ribbon Committee, a critical panel known for probing government anomalies. Marcoleta also heads the Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship Committee. Senator Alan Peter Cayetano is also leading multiple influential committees, including Accounts, Higher Education, Technical and Vocational Education, Justice and Human Rights, and Science and Technology. Meanwhile, Senator Francis Pangilinan will lead his preferred committee, which is Agriculture, Food, and Agrarian Reform. And returning Senator Bam Aquino gets the Basic Education Committee. Meantime, Senator Robin Padilla continues his legislative leadership over constitutional amendments, cultural communities and Muslim affairs, and public information and mass media committees. Senator Amy Marcos will hold 3 key positions as chairperson of Foreign Relations, Labor and Cooperatives committees. Senator Pia Cayetano will also head Energy and Ways and Means and the Sustainable Development Goals Committee. And Senator Camille Villar will be leading the Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change Committee, which was previously held by her mother, former Senator Cynthia Villar.
Meantime, the Finance Committee went to Senator Win Gatchalian, another powerful committee which plays a major role in budget deliberations. Senator Erwin Tulfo will chair Games and Amusements and the Committee on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development. Senator Bongo will continue to hold the committees on Health and Demography, as well as Sports and Youth, while Senator J.V. Ejercito will be at the helm of the Local Government and Tourism Committee. Senator Raffy Tulfo continues his advocacy for labor rights and overseas workers with both the Migrant Workers and Public Services Committee. And Senate President pro tempore Jinggoy Estrada takes over the National Defense and Security Committee. Senator Bato de la Rosa is the chair of the Public Order and Dangerous Drugs Committee, while Senator Mark Villar will lead the Public Works Committee. We're going to be pausing for another quick break, but right after that, after several days of class suspensions, the Education Department greenlights extra school days to help students catch up on their lessons. That and more when the big story returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the big story. The new Senate minority held its first caucus with a blocked first bill centered on making the budget process more transparent. Minority Leader Tito Soto and Senators Loren Legarda, Mig Subiri, Ping Lacson, and Risa Ontiveros met this morning to discuss their legislative priorities. Soto said they would meet regularly to ensure a unified stand on key issues. The five-man bloc, along with Senators Bam Aquino and Kiko Pangilinan, filed Senate Joint Resolution Number 1, proposing to open the bicameral conference committee to the public. Proponents moved to release a matrix showing the differences between the House and Senate versions of the budget and how they are eventually reconciled. The bill also recommends publishing comprehensive minutes of the meeting. President Marcos told lawmakers during his SONA not to mangle the 2026 budget, saying a reenacted one is more tolerable than a spending bill inconsistent with the administration's priorities. At the House, the fallout over the 2025 budget has prompted three Marcos-allied lawmakers to form an independent bloc. Part of the group are Congressmen Toby Tiangco of Navotas, Albi Benitez of Bacolod, and Duke Frasco of Cebu. They called on the House to remove a small committee tasked to finalize amendments to the budget, claiming this is where corruption breeds. None of them voted for Martin Romualdez' re-election as Speaker, but they reaffirmed their support for President Marcos.
Independent, para at least independent kami makapag-gawa ng stand namin.
Kami is still in support of the President. We still believe and will go all out for his administration. So baka iba yung kanilang direction. We will still exhaust all means and measures to push the legislative agenda.
In other news, schools will conduct makeup classes following a week of standstill in Luzon due to bad weather. A succession of weather systems caused widespread flooding that put schools and government offices on hold. As to when the makeup classes will be conducted is left to the discretion of schools.
Depende na yun sa mga schools kung kailan na pwedeng dagdag lang na oras sa weekdays, pwede ring gawing sa Sabado. Titingnan din natin yung schedule ng mga teachers dahil gusto natin na nagpapahinga din yung ating mga teacher.
The government think tank Philippine Institute for Development Studies revealed last year that public schools lost 53 out of 180 teaching days, primarily due to calamities, providing limited time for students to absorb lessons. According to DepEd, this exacerbates the country's education woes, where 90% of learners find it difficult to comprehend as well as understand mathematics. On Tuesday, the agency launched the Quality Basic Education Development Plan, a 10-year roadmap to institute long-term reforms in the education system. The plan aims to inject funding on digitalization, forge public-private partnerships, and decentralize policies. The launching comes as President Marcos vowed to build over 40,000 new classrooms and distribute laptops and Wi-Fi to all schools.
Medyo surgical yung approach. Alam naman natin na nasa crisis tayo ngayon at ang pinaka-problema natin ay quality. No? So gusto namin na naka-align lahat ang mga programa namin.
And for our big picture tonight, in light of the President's call during his SONA to promote fitness and health, especially among young adults, the Philippine Sports Commission has opened the doors of its track and field facilities in 3 areas. So every day from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., runners, athletes, and sports enthusiasts can access the Rizal Memorial Sports Complex in Manila, the Philippine Sports Arena Complex or Ultra in Pasig, and up north, the PSC in Teachers Camp Baguio City, and the entrance is free.
Okay.
Yun din yung topic natin sa
Yeah,
extra natin kagabi.
Yeah. When I heard it in the Sun, I actually messaged Andre right away. Oh, yung wish mo matutupad na. He's been wanting to.
You were in the Batasan
Yes,
last night.
yes.
But he was saying he's so happy kasi masakit na rin yung tuhod niya. Kakatakbo sa aspalto.
Pero at a point in time, it was open to the public.
It
Ultra
was.
was.
It was. Ultra was.
Ayan, tatanungin natin yung mga nakakaalam.
Okay, sige.
Maya-maya. We're on time. We're on time.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's it for the big story this Tuesday. Thanks so much for watching.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We're back here tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. as usual. Have a good night.